he wasn't like, you must stop having anxiety. It wasn't like that. It was like, when you have anxiety, this is the connecting point you have to have with yourself. Cause I didn't. It was very much like a keep it moving, and anything I felt in my body or anything that I felt anywhere, it was like, no, I ain't got time for this shit.
Hello, and welcome to the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. I'm your host, Nick McGowan. Today on the show, we have Melissa Coloton. Melissa, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
We were just shooting the breeze, talking about things, podcasting and life and all of that. So I want to kind of continue the conversation, but why don't you get us started? Tell us what you do for a living and what's one thing most people don't know about you that's maybe a little odd or bizarre.
So what I do for a living is I'm a certified life coach and sales expert, and I combine those two things by helping people find success that really means something to them by putting purpose and profit together, because one without the other will always make you kind of want more out of life. So I try to not be Pollyanna about purpose without profit, and I try not to be too focused on profit because, then if we get too into the weeds about that, then that's all that matters to us and we forget what our purpose is. So that's what I do. And I spent about 20 years in corporate sales. So that's my background, and always wanted to be a life coach since my late 20s. So finally started doing the thing and combined those two very bizarre things and put them together. So actually they're not bizarre things on their own, but putting them together is a little bit odd. And something that people would find odd about me, which I don't know if it's too odd, but I do think people are surprised when I say this. In my blood, I'm a farm girl. So I grew up on a farm. My dad was a farmer. His dad was a farmer. So, and I think people are surprised about that because, I've spent a lot of time in corporate. So being very corporate-y and wearing the jackets and all the things. And so when I say I grew up basically in the middle of a field and ate dirt most of my childhood, people are like, wow, surprising. So I would say that I present this very polished person, but I really do enjoy a good old backwood bonfire and grew up partying in fields. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like how you slowly kind of got into that and you were like, and we party a lot in fields.
And we partied a lot. We had to party on state land because, there was nowhere really to go, right? There was nowhere to go. So we just would all get together in state land fields. That's what we did.
That's cool. I mean, we all have, I think we all have situations growing up that some people were a little bit more partiers. I'm trying to be real mindful of how I put this. Some people partied hard in their high school years and others didn't. And then they partied too hard in their early 20s when it was legal to go drink or whatever. And then they got out of it. Some just never get out of it and belly up to the bar at 65 years old. And it's the same bar they've been bellying up to. But I think there's some crazy moments that you can think back to. I'm sure there definitely are for me that have to do with some of those parties that I can look back at now and go, holy shit. I saw how life could have changed drastically. And also I saw how I learned to kind of manage things in a sense. How do you manage a whole group of 40 people around a bonfire out in the middle of nowhere, or the cops are coming. How do you let everybody know, or whatever that looks like?
Right.
I can appreciate coming from basically somewhere that's not corporate at all and then ending up in corporate, because I've seen that with people that I've worked with at times that were some of the best workers I'd ever worked with, and some of the almost hard-nosed people I've ever worked with. And I think that came from their background of being on their farm. You had chores that most city kids didn't have, and tough things that you had to figure out. And what do we do? Did that help you think, when you got into not only corporate, but sales?
Yeah, I think it did a few things. Honestly, it definitely helped my work ethic. Summers off were not a thing for me. I literally would hay it, is what we called it, is basically get all the hay ready for the winter. And I remember me and my cousin, she was only a year older than me. We would fight about who would get the front of the wagon and who would get the back of the wagon. Because if you were the back, you had to start throwing, eventually you'd have to start throwing the bales of hay to the front for the person to put it on the elevator and go up and dump it into the hay mill. And we would fight about that, literally one of us would try to get to the back or try to get to the front so they didn't have to be the one throwing bales of hay. So I definitely feel like it helped my work ethic. Plus, like seeing my dad work like that. My dad, he had to do chores before he went to school when he was in high school. He would have to do chores and then he'd have to do sports or whatever he did and come home and do more chores. So my dad, it wasn't like he got that like childhood most people think of when they think of childhood. My dad was worked with his dad. That's what he did. And they found a way to make it fun. So I think that also helped me was like, you can't take yourself too seriously in an environment like that because shit hits the fan a lot. And if you lose your mind every time the shit hits the fan on a farm, like you'll just go nuts. So I have a lot of stories from my dad and his aunt about how they grew up and my grandfather and how crazy that all was. And they just have a lot of laughs about it because I really do think like you'd go nuts. So I think that really helped my work ethic in a really big way. I also feel like it removed a lot of entitlement. I'm not saying I don't have any entitlement because I think we all do to some degree. But I think it removed a lot of entitlement because I didn't really come into this world with all this money or like I wasn't handed anything in my life. Like everything I did, I had to work really hard for. And so when you're in sales, that serves you very well because you can then make things out of nothing. Even in my sales career, I would get these territories and I'd be like, what the fuck? and I'm like, and at first I was pissed about it, right? Like, why can't I just get a main account or something like that? But I'm glad I didn't because I learned the art of making something out of nothing, making money where there was no money in existence yet. Like I always say, like in sales, especially like the sales professionals that are like, I wanted an active account or I want a territory that's already bloomed. I'm like, you should actually not want that for especially your first couple go rounds because you will learn a skill set that nobody will ever take from you and nobody will ever actually teach you. You will not learn that in a book. You will not learn that in a podcast. You have to just do it. And so, yeah, I think growing up on a farm helped me with those two things in a really big way.
I could imagine that you were in a much better spot to be able to handle really tough situations or like calculations of moves, but also probably you experienced different things that other people didn't. Like trying to think from like the opposite perspective. Like I mainly grew up in a city or like right outside of a city, and I've always been around a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So being in a corporate environment, like all the chaos, all the people talking, like, those meetings where it's like one person should really be running it, but they've lost it. It's off the rails at this point. Like everybody's just yabbering about whatever the fucking thing is. And how do you pull that back? How do you not? Like what's your level of it? When does it not matter what your level is? And go, that sort of thing or whatever. I think that there's stuff that we as people can really try to find the easiest way through. Like we're seeing a lot of it with AI now. Mm-hmm. Everybody's trying to write books and they're trying to do all these things because they just need to create and they need to do all this. When in all reality, what they're really doing is saying, well, I have to make money. And I'm told that I have to do more. So I have to do more to make the money, but I don't have enough time to do it. And I don't really know what the fuck's going on. And in sales, without AI, we've experienced that stuff where you're like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and I don't have enough in my pipeline. And but that's just a small piece from a salesperson. And we all experience stuff like that. But you ended up getting to the point where you've done a lot, you worked through, and you can look back now and go, I was really appreciative of having that. You weren't then, because you typically aren't, where you're like, are you fucking kidding me? Nobody's here. This is nonsense. Right. But when you learn and you work through it, you can see the silver lining of it. But that's not always the case with getting burnout. Right. So talk to us about not only the journey of like looking back at that and going, I can see where I was starting to burn. And where I was starting to smolder, but then also what that journey looked like. You shared a bit of that even before we started, of like taking it kind of category by category of, all right, I'm going to work through this, like the mind, body, soul, etc. So what did that look like for you?
Hindsight is wildly 2020, right? So when I would say my burning out or burnt outness started showing its ugly head, I truly blamed it on life situations, how hard I had worked, like that kind of stuff. Because at the time, I also had a friend that was dying of cancer. So it was life combined with work. And even up until, I would say, even just recently, honestly, like I would say like literally probably within the last 6 to 12 months, this has come to me a little bit clearer. And that is, it wasn't necessarily how much I was working. It wasn't necessarily even the work I was doing. It was the lens in which I was seeing it all. And that was being very performative, really afraid to fail, like really, really afraid to fail. And I say this with a huge grain of salt because I love my parents, but my parents were very young when they had me. My mom was 18 when she had me. She was 16 when she had my brother. And so they were like kids raising kids. And so I think my mom put on this suit of like, my children are not going to have the life that I had. They are going to have a different life than me, which served me very, very, very well. Also, it created a monster in me that was like, you have to succeed, period. Like no matter what, you have to succeed and you cannot fail. And I often had these experiences with my mom where I remember this one time I got a C in French, like who fucking cares? I'm not going to move to Paris. Like we're okay. And she like just lost her shit on me. Like, just like, what the fuck are you? Like, she didn't swear, but basically she was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, if you can't get better grades than this, you're not going to go. She always held sports over my head because I loved playing sports. So that was always one where she could really get me and to do whatever she wanted me to do. Because I'd be like, oh my God, I need to go to sports. And so as I got older and I started working in these really immense pressure cookers. I mean, Nick, my biggest opportunity I ever had was over $100 million. And that was just in service fees. So together, it was actually probably more like a $200 million deal. So I would get in these pressure situations. And instead of being like, I got this, I'd be like, this has to come together. Like,
Yeah.
And it was more of like a lens I saw my work through than it was the actual work I was doing. So I started getting these weird bursts of anxiety at very odd times, which is why I kind of shoved it aside, because it wasn't like I would be in the middle of a meeting and be like, oh my God, I'm about to have a panic attack. Mm-hmm. It would be more like weirder times, like specifically when I was driving. Like when I would drive, I would get really anxious. And I was just like, that's weird. And I just kept putting it off, kept putting it off, kept putting it off, kept putting it off. And then one day I couldn't. Yeah, it was just, I was driving on the way to work and complete meltdown. Like pulled off the highway, tried to get back on, pulled off the highway, tried to get back on. I couldn't do it. Thank God at the time I was working for, my boss was my friend. So I was able to call her and say, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me, but I cannot come to work today. And I was supposed to like, my team was coming into town. I was supposed to be leading meetings and all this stuff. She's like, don't worry about it. Go home, get some rest. And I thought it would be a blip on the radar. I was like, I'm going to be fine tomorrow. Right. And I figured I could probably keep pushing it aside. I woke up the next day and had just anxiety, like just major chronic anxiety. Couldn't drive. I couldn't even drive a quarter. I don't exaggerate this. And when it's funny when I've told people this story afterwards, like people who know me really well, they're like, they literally think I'm lying. And I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. Like I could not get in my car and drive a quarter mile down the road without being like, I gotta go home. I gotta go back home. So that led to work with a practitioner near where I live, and he's a life coach and an acupuncturist. And so I've been seeing him ever since that day, which has been, I think this summer will be 8 years now. And nice. And we really focused on reconnection to myself. And when I did get, it's like he wasn't like, you must stop having anxiety. It wasn't like that. It was like, when you have anxiety, this is the connecting point you have to have with yourself. Because I didn't. It was very much like a keep it moving. And anything I felt in my body or anything that I felt anywhere, it was like, no, I ain't got time for this shit. And I even remember going into his office being like, the fuck, like this, I just don't have time for this. Like I legitimately remember thinking that. And then I remember sitting in his office for the first time, him telling me that I don't have a relationship with myself. And I'm like, excuse me? Like I just thought I was one of the most authentic people and all this stuff. So it took some work to even understand what was really going on with myself. And so that led to a lot of connection with self, a lot of soul work, what's really in my heart. When I do have anxiety, what does that mean? What do I need to console? How do I need to function in that experience? and actually welcoming anxiety. Because I believe that like when you have these feelings, it's your soul being like, hey, I need some attention here. Like, what about me? And so I was just playing the game of like, I don't care about you. I'm going to keep it moving. So that was a lot of our work in the beginning. And then when that got really, really solid, I was like, oh, but actually there's mind, body, and soul here. And so now I'm really in a big era of focusing a lot on my mind because I can really see now, because I meditate a lot more now, and I can really see the thoughts that I come up with on a fairly regular basis. And I can see the through line and I can see the thread. And then I can take that and command my mind to think a different thought. And then it becomes a belief. And then I'm just at a better place, generally speaking. So, yeah. And then the body is just kind of more the obvious one, I would say. You know, I'm very keen on taking care of my body and not drinking like god awful amount of caffeine just to get through the day, stay focused, and you know, like, because that's what I was doing for a while there. So I hope that kind of paints a picture of what I experienced. It was not pretty, and there was a lot to it, and there were very dark days. I remember I never thought this before, and I only actually told one person this when it was happening, and not even my husband. I told my best friend. I was like, if I'm going to feel like this for the rest of my life, like I actually don't think I want to live like this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily a true like thought of, you know what, but it was the start of one for sure. Cause I was like, I don't want to live like this. Like this isn't living. That's how terrible I felt on a regular basis. So, you know, I definitely went on anti-anxiety medication. I was told I had major depressive disorder. When they said that to me, I was like, what did you just say to me? Like, it was still like, what the fuck are you talking? What are any of you people talking about? So it really took me a while to not be in denial. And then when I wasn't, and it was finally like okay, yeah, I get this. Like, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm going to have. I have to deal with this. So, yeah, I'm really thankful for my practitioner and all my friends and all my family, and everybody I worked with was amazing at the time. Thank God. My boss didn't tell anybody, you know, like people didn't really know that I was in that state of being when I was at work, and I still was able to get through, but it took a while. And then I finally came off anti-anxiety medicine and went back on them one time, and that was at the height of my executive. And again, I kind of got to that place of, I hope nobody figures out I'm an idiot, or, you know, I have to be perfect, or, you know, what if I don't meet my target? Like there's just again, it was in that pressure cooker moment. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to like move all these things aside and pretend they're not there. So I kind of did a solid 2 rounds of that. The second round wasn't nearly as bad as the first because I had the tools, but there was definitely elements of that same initial experience. Again, it just wasn't as bad as the first time because I think I had tools, sure. But it eventually got me to the place where I was like, okay, something for real needs to give. Like this is not sustainable for me. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I think the second round, I was a little bit more in that thought process of like, I've tried to make this work in corporate. I'm just forcing it at this point. So
I think that's critical. Like we, as people, can look at things that we're told to do. Like you need to go to college, you need to go to school, you need to get married, you need to have kids, you need this, you need that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And those things change with every generation. Like even our parents that were like, you're going to have a better life than I did, so I'm going to do things. And it's like, everything you're going to do, you're still going to fuck up your kid somehow because you're going to say something weird or something's going to happen. They're going to interpret it weird or whatever. They're just different human.
Yeah.
But we take all these things and we think we have to be a certain way, especially from a corporate perspective, not even corporate, from somebody who works in larger organizations with a team of people and a lot of people counting on you from different departments.
Yeah.
Not just from sales, but production needs things from you. They need you to bring in sales, like all the different stuff that goes along with it, where we can get so stuck thinking it's all on me. It's all this, it's all whatever it is. And that's typically never, ever the actual problem.
Right.
I find that there's a lot of times where it's a misalignment problem where we're not aligned with what we're doing, but we don't want to fucking have that conversation with ourselves.
Correct.
To be able to do that.
Right.
Biggest thing that you pointed out was you did work and then you did more work and then you did more work after that. And now you're still doing a lot of work. 100%. So big moral of the story is keep doing the work.
Yeah.
Because those things will start to clear up. Like the spot you're in with whatever you're at, just like the people that are listening that are like, well, I'm in a spot right now with either my company or the company I work for. And really in the back of their minds, they're like, what the fuck? How do I change? What do I even, where do I start? What happens? Like, what's the first thing I look at? I think about it like, those junk drawers or even a junky closet that everybody has. Like if you really want to clean that thing out, you have to take everything out and then you have to audit it. Yep. And that's such a fucking project. Yeah. No one wants to do it with their junk drawer, let alone themselves. But they get to the point where they're like, I can't not. I have to because I can't anymore. I don't want to be here. Wait, if I don't want to be here, what else does that look like? And then things start to crumble a bit. Yep. I think the big thing that you're saying with doing the work is that there's consistent work that needs to happen. But then there's also clarity that comes with that opens up other doors. Like I see things at times where it's like I open one door and there's 40 more. And I open another door and there's 4,000 more. And I'm like, fuck, should I turn around? Because there were less doors this way. Like, what's going on here?
It's like Jenga,
because of that self-awareness. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you're like, where do I pull that thing from?
Pull this one out. What's about to happen?
And that's a really good point. I think a lot of people live in a Jenga-like state and they don't really know it. And anything could crack them.
Yeah.
I think it's on us to be able to be self-aware enough to see like, hey, there's something there. But it can still, like it even gets the best of all of us, no matter how much work we've done. It's how quickly you can kind of snap back in a sense and go, I see what I did there. For future Nick's problem, let's do something a little different.
Right.
So looking back at that stuff, because here we are in a podcast where this is easy to talk about, but this is also, I think about it as like a lab sort of situation where we go, cool, if we do the work now, by the time you get in that situation, even if you think back and go, those two fucking people were talking about this thing. I remember this. Here's what they said. Like that's the point of like, how do we do work now so that when we're in that spot, we go, you know what? I've been here before. Let me do something a little differently, or at least catch where we're off. And what I mean by that is like mindset wise. I've been in situations where my mindset was, I'm going to not fuck this up. I'm going to do the best situation I can. I'm going to do whatever I can. Like I've learned some things. And I think too hard about it. I'm too mindset-y with it because I'm so dead set on just like seeing the thing through instead of understanding context and the situation. And I had something years ago where I literally reacted to my partner at the time. She said something and I reacted and like felt my being split where I was like, yo, dude, don't you say another fucking word. And I could literally hear myself go, shut up and get the fuck out of the house. And I was like, and one more thing. And it was like, motherfucker. Because like it's already out there. No. You can't do anything. But even that level of self-awareness to go, shit. All right, I did that. So what do I do differently this time? The work has to keep adding up. Yeah. So now that you're able to look back at that stuff and say, look, I've done a lot of this work. I keep doing work. For somebody who's in a spot, either in their own business or something that where they're managing like you did, where you're like, there's this and there's that. I don't want people to find out that I don't really know what the fuck's going on. Like, what sort of things did you figure out that worked for you? Because your energy that would align with them, it might be in a similar spot where, hey, I need to do this sort of thing from a mechanism standpoint of like breathing or standing out of my energy or whatever, to then get to the point where I can actually do something about my mind. So what did that look like for you?
Well, not to be too prescriptive, but the way I describe my, I guess, set of tools, if you will, is honoring yourself. And that's a really big perspective I have now in POV of looking at situations in life as a whole. And that just means, recognizing, respecting, and responding to your emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental needs the best you can, right? And despite external circumstances or societal norms or, anything that might pull you away from really, truly hearing all those things about yourself and knowing what it is you really want. And too many people, especially now, because we're getting super influenced by mega externals. Like before it was probably just our parents and maybe our school and maybe our friends. And now it's the whole world is influencing you in a really big way. And maybe TV, like we had a couple channels, right? And commercials, sure, whatever.
We're not that old. Calm down.
I know. I think I kind of am.
We had to get up and actually hit the switch.
I kind of am.
The rabbit ears.
I'm definitely of the age where you had to sprint to the bathroom or get new snacks before the commercial was over.
Same. I get that.
My brother would be like, it's coming back on. But yeah, I think there's just, there's a lot of influence. And so how do you understand what you truly want, what you truly need? How do you recognize that? How do you respect it? And I say respect because, a lot of people do the mindset work where they're like, shut up, mind. Well, that's not respectful to your mind, right? Like, why are you treating a major part of who you are disrespectfully? Not saying I never do it, but that's not the way to go. Like, that's not going to leverage your mind, your body, and your soul to get what you want out of life and perform at a really high level if that's what you want in whatever you're doing. Because when I say perform at a high level, I don't mean like you're some CEO or something. I mean, this can be parenting, this can be being a friend, this can be, picking up a new hobby and just enjoying it. And so I've really thought a lot about this because I wanted to try to containerize what I experienced so other people might use it as a tool. And there's a lot more layers to that. When I say honor yourself, there's a lot of layers to that because there's a lot of layers to your mind and your body and your soul and your emotions and how to deal with all of that. But that's effectively the way I look at it. And, a lot of people spend their time focusing on, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? And within the honor you thought process, my definition of that is fulfilling your soul's desires. And that can mean you want to start baking cakes because that's fun to you. And that can mean also that maybe you want to start a family. That can also mean you want to be in marketing, right? So many people are focused on purpose with regard to picking one thing and one thing only in life. And it's like, no wonder we're driving ourselves bonkers with this, right? So I think if I were to offer anything to your listeners, I would say that start thinking about what does honoring yourself mean to you specifically, and know that purpose is not just one thing. It's fulfilling your soul's desires. So your job in life is to figure out what does your soul actually want at any given point, and giving yourself the permission to make changes around that if that is appropriate for you at the time. And knowing that when you are having anxiety or stress symptoms is what I like to call them too, is when you're experiencing things, it's not to be ignored. It's actually to be recognized, respected, and responded to in an appropriate way so that you don't find yourself waking up one day and be like, how did I get here? And, I call it the ants marching syndrome, or going down the river syndrome, right? You just jump on a raft and you get told what to do. To your point earlier, you get told, go to college, get married, have children, save for retirement, retire and die. Like, gross.
No thanks.
Yeah. Like, what are we even doing? And a lot of people are going, check, 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 check. And then they get to a point where they're like, what am I actually doing right now? Like, I'm not very happy. So then, of course, what ends up happening is everybody starts reaching externally and trying to figure out where the happiness is for them. And that looks better on some people than others. It's like some people get really fucked up trying to do that because they'll reach for drugs or alcohol or a whole plethora of things that don't serve them. So yeah, it's a really long-winded way, but that's my POV now, because I didn't do any of those things before. I was on the river of life and it was working really well for me because I was making good money. I had, just kept going up in the ladder, right? That's what I'm supposed to do. And then before you know it, I was not happy. I had tons of stress symptoms, and I did that twice. The first time being a lot worse than the second time, because the first time I didn't have any of these tools. At least the second time it was like, oh, shoot, here I am again, completely dishonoring myself, doing things that are not what I desire. And I'm just doing it for the money effectively, or to kind of show I could do it or prove a point or not fuck up. Like, it wasn't out of pure joy. I'll tell you that.
Most things that we do aren't out of pure joy because we feel we have to do certain things, etc. I think you brought up a really good point. I'm glad you bring this up. In fact, I appreciate when anybody brings up the word purpose, because we can all look at purpose differently. It's wild to me when people think that there's one purpose. Like, this is the one thing you're here to do. And I've learned that that's not the case, that it's more so contextual based on the time, where we're at. Like, you and I have podcasts 40 years ago. If we were born in the 50s or 60s, we wouldn't have had a podcast, right? Because it wasn't a thing at that point, right? But it would have shown up differently. So us being able to take how we show up in the world, what our flavor is, and what we bring to just being authentically us is the most important component of that. But it's hard for us to get through those layers at times. like everything that you're saying, it's like there's a deeper foundational layer to it. Even of like, well, I'm doing this because I want to look better, or I'm doing this because I want to do that. Like there's a level of self-awareness to that. And also, what the fuck? Why? Why are you doing in that sort of way?
Right.
And what are you trying to get out of it? I get really worried for some people at times when they get stuck in those loops, because you've seen stuff like when you're, and I don't want to say ahead or above or anything, you're just at a different level of your own journey where you can look and go, man, I see you're going to drive directly into a wall. I want to help you.
Yeah.
But if you don't want any help, then fucking at least put your buckle on. Like, just seatbelt, please. Like, please don't die.
Right.
But I do think it's important for us to understand what our purpose looks like through the work that we do. So think about what you've done in sales. You've learned a lot from sales. You learned a lot from the farms, learned a lot from what your parents did, what they didn't do, all these things. That all ties into work that you do now. But you needed to go through and experience all those things so you can go, hold on, time out. I need to look at this differently. What do I do? How do I get past this, et cetera? And how do I actually do this work? If you were just to tell somebody, hey, you need to do these 400 things that I did, your list was probably 40 times that. But like that, even that list, they'd be like, oh no, hell no. I don't want any parts of that. Do you think I can just throw it into Claude and Claude will fix it for me? Or you think I can have AI do a thing for me or whatever? Because there's a deeper foundational layer to that of us all trying to do more instead of understanding there's systems at play that are telling us we're not enough, instead of going, well, what am I here for? What do I actually need to do on this planet? So for the people that are on their own path towards self-mastery, what advice do you give them to show up and be them on this planet?
I would say don't outsource. You really triggered me when you just said that.
I didn't mean to set you up for that one.
Yeah, really. Like it really is like people, but and I would say that anyway, probably because even before AI, we are outsourcing to the external. We're really outsourcing to what are people going to think, and what if I do this, or what if I don't do that? And some people external, look for the external to fix their emotions instead of just feeling them, right? So it's the tale of time, right? It's just like something we've always done and we probably will always continue to do. And it's just getting in a different context now. So I would say like, don't outsource your life, and don't outsource having something external help you figure out what it is that you love and what it is that you enjoy. And I always say your soul speaks in emotions. And if we can really not just intellectualize that, but truly understand that, then we'll start paying attention a lot more. Like, oh, boy, that made me feel real shitty when that person talked to me that way. Okay, what's that about? Is it really because the person that talked to me that shitty? Or is it because like grew up with my mom talking to me like that and it just triggers the fuck out of me because it might trigger me, but not you, right? Or like there's been times where I've come home and told my husband, like, can you believe blah, blah, blah? And he's like, not really seeing. I'm like,
yeah, I can't. No.
You better agree with me.
Yeah.
So I really think that an ability to not outsource things in your life that are so important, which are the things that matter, which are your purpose, essentially, like not to be cliche or too esoteric about it, but pay attention to where you're at, pay attention to your thoughts. I mean, meditate. I like on my podcast not long ago, I like literally yelled at people. I was just like, if you're too busy to meditate, like the fuck are you even talking about? Like if you sit in a line to pick your kids up for 20, 30 minutes, like close your eyes for a second, just like focus and see what you're like, watch your thoughts, see what happens. Like people are just so busy. There's like, oh, I can't find time for that. No, you actually can't sit with yourself for more than 10 minutes without picking up your phone or like watching a TV. Like pay attention to that. Like that means something. So yeah, I mean, I just think we're wildly outsourcing and it's getting probably worse before it's getting better, unfortunately. But I just think it's a different version of it now than it probably was however many hundreds of years ago. So
sure.
Yeah, I would say don't outsource. And, on the tail end of that, I would say like, don't sit in your shit and then complain about it being stinky either. Right. There's a time and a place to mourn things or to be upset about things or to really feel things and experience them 100% from an emotional standpoint. But it's got to go through the cycle. We can't get stuck in part of the cycle, right? I always talk about like things are very cyclical as it relates to nature. And if you get stuck in winter, you get stuck in spring, you just can't do that. You have to keep it moving and let it go through this whole cycle. And don't complain if you're sitting in your shit constantly and you're like saying, oh, why does it stink all the time? It's like, well, because you just sit there and you're shit.
Yeah. I think it's a good point too, to point out that you shouldn't outsource everything. We actually need to do more of our own work on our own to figure out what parts of it and all. And also that doesn't take away from reaching out to other people or specifically having practitioners or different modalities that you go through to be able to help you with those things.
Yeah.
Because we can't just mindset our way through it. We can't just think about those things, and we can't say like, it's going to be okay. There are different times you have to do work. As you know, you do that work. Mm-hmm. But being able to take from that to say that those things that we keep coming up against, that keep rubbing us a weird way or making us feel some sort of way, that's the crux moment where I think it can be easiest to just go, oh, that sucks, I don't like the thing, and then to run away, instead of being like, this keeps coming back. So what do I do with it? Because then that's really the start. Like, you may have to talk to somebody. You may just have to sit by yourself for a few minutes to go, well, what the fuck? What is the thing? But you're still going to need to go through that process to do it. And it helps us uncover what our purpose is through that, to go, oh, I don't want to do this. I want to do more of that. And really, when I wake up, I really want to do these things. But I'm in this spot now. So how the fuck do I get there? Well, great. That's the next part of your journey. Instead of being like, well, that shit sucks and stinks and everybody welcome, I'm Linus, like it doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm a certified life coach. So 100%, I think people need to get the support. And I would say even in that scenario, you can't get addicted to getting everything you need. When I first started seeing my life coach and acupuncturist, it was every week. Then it went down to every 2 weeks, and then it went down to every month. And now it's mostly monthly, but I can definitely skip months now. Sure. Whereas before it was like, oh God, right? So 100%. And that's kind of what I mean by like sitting in your own shit too. Like if you're stuck somewhere and you just can't find your way out of that, I mean, there was literally no way I was going to get out of my situation with anxiety by myself. I mean, right. Like I went to a doctor, I had medication. I tried to see a counselor. She was awful. No offense, but she was. So I finally landed where I landed with my life coach and acupuncturist. I wouldn't have been able to do that solely by myself. And he didn't tell me what to do every second of every day. He taught me how to live with myself and connect with myself. And I took that very seriously. And for a while I intellectualized it, because I think we all do that, right? I'm a very like, oh, I get it. But then there's gotta be, a component of embodying it and actually really, truly doing that work, and not just being like, oh, I get it. Because what ends up happening is like, you'll be like, okay, I get it. And then the slightest little change in the breeze will knock you over. And now you're just right back to where you were, right? Yeah. So that's where I was for a good while. I'm like, oh, I get it. I got this. Like, I can do this. Because that's how I've been my whole life, right? Like, tell me how to do something, I'll fucking do it. You only got to tell me once. But then with that situation, I did that. And then like the slightest little thing would happen and I'd be kind of right back to square one. It's like Monopoly. It's like, or whatever, one of those board games where you have to go all the way back to the beginning all the time. So after a while, I was like, oh, wait, this is what I've been doing my whole life, is intellectualizing it and not actually truly connecting with my soul. So 100% agree with you. That's why people exist, is to help each other in my mind, in some way, shape or form. And so find that good practitioner that you can trust and won't just let you, wallow in your own shit and just have you keep coming back every week with no changes. If that's the case, then there's probably a different practitioner for you.
That's a friend at that point. Like, you should stop paying them and just hang out with them if that's what you want to do. But you're right. It's all on us. And being open to those resources, I think, is really the driver of what I think about.
Oh, yeah.
Like going, all right, well, I'm aware of this thing. What the fuck's near me? What's around me? And then actually going through the layers of, how do I talk to that person? Or what do I do? Blah, blah, blah. But being able to ask those from the initial question of what's going on inside is going to help you. So I appreciate you getting into that, especially getting into purpose work. That's always important on the show. So thank you so much for being with us today. Before I let you go, where can people find you and where can they connect with you?
The best place is my website, which is just melissacoloton.com. I also host a podcast myself called the Honor You Podcast. I love it when people go check that out, of course. those are probably two of the best places, and that'll direct you to all the socials and all that fun stuff.
Cool. And I'll have all that stuff in the show notes.
Awesome.
Again, thank you so much for being on the call today.
Thanks for having me, Nick. It was a great conversation.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the episode, please jump over to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you consume podcasts and subscribe, rate, and leave a 5-star review. It's very much appreciated and also helps other people find the show and experience healing just like us. Please also head over to our website, themindsetandselfmasteryshow.com, where you can check out all of our episodes and find additional resources to help you manage your mindset as you seek self-mastery. So with that, thank you. And remember, your mindset matters, and so do you.